Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Sky High. And I'm really happy for the first time to have my buddy Ronnie from News to Astonish here in this video with me to collab talking about Sky High, a Disney movie from back in the day, 2005, that is about superheroes right at the very beginning of superhero movies starting to become the modern blockbuster. And yeah, this is a movie I have a lot of fond memories of. We're going to hear from Ronnie from News to Astonish in just a little bit, but a big thanks for him being here in this video, and you guys can find the link to his channel as usual down below in the description box. Go give him some love. He has tons of content over there where he talks about anything from Marvel comics to DC comics to video games to other movie related news. He's got so many things going on over there. He's definitely one of the people I've learned from when it comes to YouTube, because he was doing it for a long time before me, and I definitely recommend you guys go check him out. So Sky High is a film directed by Mike Mitchell, who also directed things like Shrek Forever After, Trolls, and the second Lego movie. And yeah, it's just a really fun, goofy, silly movie that has a lot of real life metaphors and messages it wrapped up in this very silly superhero idea. This film stars people like Kurt Russell, Kelly Preston, who did pass away, you know, God rest her soul, as well as Michael Angarano, I believe this is how his last name is pronounced, Danielle Panabaker, and so many others. And is a story about this superhero high school that's up in the clouds called Sky High, where once you've hit this certain age of your teenage years, you go off to this high school in the sky, and you're either going to be placed as a sidekick or as a superhero, depending upon your powers. And our main character in the story is a kid named Will Stronghold, whose parents, played by Kurt Russell and Kelly Preston, are essentially like the Superman of the world, the Superman and Supergirl of the world. They're these two really badass heroes. They have the biggest legacy as heroes. They're the most iconic heroes, and they are the superheroes to live up to. So right out of the gate, our character is set up with a lot of pressure, and we learn not too long into the film that he actually has not gotten his powers yet, and he's been lying to his parents and everyone around him about the fact that he has not yet gotten his powers. He's done everything he can to try to avoid showcasing his powers, but now he's at the school where he has to showcase his powers, and it comes out that he, the son of these two great superheroes, does not have any powers yet. That's a real life metaphor for kind of living up to your parents' expectations, right? I think that this movie definitely has a lot of that, where there's a big message in here about living up to your parents' expectations and the outside world having an expectation of you because of who your parents are. And I think that that's something that a lot of people can relate with. You know, I feel blessed to have had two parents that, you know, pushed me in certain ways and definitely had expectations for me in certain areas, but for the most part kind of just let me find my own path. And you know, the reality is that we all have friends whose parents are kind of very rigid on them. They have very strict expectations on them, and they have a certain vision for them, and if they kind of get away from that a little bit, they're kind of disappointed by them. And so this movie kind of tackles that message, and I thought that they handled it really well. Of course, it is a Disney movie where the main character doesn't have his powers yet, and it's about superheroes. So by the end of the film, he does essentially have both of his parents' powers, and he becomes this kind of Superman-esque character. And so that's kind of like a fun transition throughout the film. But at the beginning of the film, one of the main things, one of the other metaphors in the film is that he ends up getting placed in the sidekick group. Depending upon your power and how much you can do, you're placed in either the hero or the sidekick group. And majority of this movie follows the sidekick group. You literally have a girl that can turn into a guinea pig. She's a shapeshifter, but she can only turn into a guinea pig, and a guy that can glow in the dark. These are the kind of powers we're dealing with here. But at the end of the film, it really went to show that the sidekicks were the real heroes of the story. And there's, again, another metaphor about kind of real life situations where you're kind of placed at a certain level based on your skill level. And, you know, maybe sometimes you can surprise people by using your skill level to be the hero in that situation. And I found that to be a pretty cool life message there. I think that there's a lot of really great life messages in here with this fun, silly superhero premise. Now, before I give you guys the rest of my thoughts on this movie, let's go ahead and hear what my buddy Ronnie over at News to Astonish had to say about this.
Hey Anthony, thank you so much for having me on your channel and doing this collaboration. It's really exciting. I'm super excited. I was actually kind of stoked when you told me to review Sky High, a classic film in my age, basically. I remember watching this movie back in the day in 2005, and it was an awesome Disney original film. Now, looking at it now, because you can actually stream this movie now on Hulu or Disney Plus if you wanted to. Check it out. It's a really decent film. It's really fun and great for the family and kids, of course. Now, looking at this movie now, like I said before, a lot of it reminds me of My Hero Academia. Of course, this movie came before that, but it's pretty much a similar premise, if not almost the same kind of premise. These teenagers go to a school that's literally located sky high, high up in the sky. And this movie is a superhero comedy, if you really think about it. And it centers around an airborne school for teenagers who are learning how to use their powers and become superheroes and sidekicks. And this school has a couple of divisions. They have the hero division and they have the hero support division, aka the sidekick division. And basically, it's a really fun time. You get a lot of laughs. You get a lot of super action intense sequences, a lot of comedy. This movie stars Kurt Russell, Kelly Preston, may she rest in peace. Of course, it also stars our main protagonist, Michael Angarano, who plays Will Stronghold, our main protagonist of the film. And of course, a younger Danielle Panabaker. It also stars a few other actors that are really well known today, such as the villain of the film, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And again, when you look at this movie now, you go back and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe, I don't remember this actor or being in this film, like such as Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's actually one of my favorite actresses to this day, who I loved in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I'm sorry to digress, but you watch old movies, you're like, oh my God, this actor was so young in that film. But anyways, aside from that, let's just talk about the plot of the movie. I'm going to give you a brief summary. I'm not going to get too much into plot details or spoilers because, again, this movie is available on Hulu to stream. It is a 15-year-old film, but it still holds up pretty well today, and it is a Disney original. So Will Stronghold begins 9th grade in high school, in Sky High, that exclusively teaches teenagers how to use their superpowers and how to become superheroes, basically. And Will's parents are the popular Commander and Jetstream, played by, again, Kurt Russell and Kelly Preston. They are the most famous superheroes in this universe. So Kurt Russell's character, the Commander, has basically Superman's powers, with the exception of flight, heat vision and whatnot. He has super strength. And Jetstream has the ability to fly. And together, they utilize their powers and they protect the world and they fight crime. And they have a son named Will Stronghold, who unfortunately has not developed his superpowers yet. Now, you can also say that this situation right here, where Will Stronghold does not develop his superpowers, is a metaphor for like puberty, where he hasn't basically developed anything in particular when you go through puberty. You can call it that. I mean, you can look at it that way. And because of this, Will Stronghold gets picked on, bullied because of not having superpowers, amongst other reasons, where another character has a problem with Will Stronghold because of this character's parents were imprisoned by Will Stronghold's parents. There's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of backstory about our main villain, which was actually very entertaining, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Her reasoning behind it, you actually get to understand her reasoning of committing crimes and wanting to take over the school because of said issues that occurred back in the day. And that's as much as I'm going to go because I don't want to spoil it. It's actually rather a very interesting, complex story. If you really think about it, you actually can sympathize with the villains of this movie. The villains are not just straight up mustachio villains. A lot of these antagonists that show up in the movie have reasoning to do the things that they do, such as villainy acts. And our superheroes are all likable. Everybody is pretty much likable in this movie. And that includes the villains, of course, where they are so good at being villains where you actually hate them because they're that good and they're that intriguing. And the superheroes, such as the Commander and Jetstream, played by Kurt Russell and Kelly Preston, are lovable, likable parents, very understanding, who are passionate about their superhero life and who are passionate about their son's education. And hopefully he will end up becoming a superhero. But the only unfortunate event that's occurring is that he doesn't have any superpowers and he's keeping this a secret from his parents. So he would often pretend that he has superpowers. So there was this one sequence where he's working out in his room and his parents or his father walks in and he pretends that he just bench press like about 1,000 times. And it was such a really fun moment. Eventually, he ends up manifesting his superpowers in the film at some point in the movie. There is a bit of a twist to his manifestation of his superpowers. I'm not really going to get into that. I'll leave you guys to check it out for yourself. It is pretty cool. But let's just say he kind of becomes a powerhouse in the movie. On and on, this movie is a lot of fun. It's a good time. It's got a bunch of great characters, lovable characters. It does hold up pretty well. This movie, honestly, to me, doesn't really treat its audience like a bunch of idiots. It's not hokey. It is lighthearted and it is fun, and there are actually really good, fun, intense sequences. Not as intense as like the violent superhero movies, but just intense sequences. It just doesn't treat its audience like a bunch of idiots. It is lighthearted. It is a fun time, and I think it's fun for the family, and I think you'll enjoy it. It does hold up pretty well, and that's why I'm gonna give Sky High a 9 out of 10. So that's pretty much my review for Sky High, guys, and thank you so much for having me on this channel, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I love your videos. I love all the work that you put into your videos. Head over to my channel, News to Astonish, where I talk about comics, movies, games, and more. I even do live streams 5 times a week if you want to check that out. And also subscribe to Anthony. He's a great guy. He makes videos all the time. He's always on that grind. Anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching once again, and I'll see you all in the next comic panel. Back to you, Anthony.
A big thanks to my buddy Ronnie for being here in this video. My buddy, thank you so much for being here with me. I definitely appreciate it. There's going to definitely be a lot more collabs coming very soon. Like I mentioned, guys, you guys can go over to his channel. In the description box down below is the link to his channel. He's got tons of stuff going on over there, a bunch of comic book related content. He's constantly live streaming the latest video games, so definitely go check him out. Go give him some love, and you'll definitely see his face here on this channel a lot more. So yeah, Sky High, like I mentioned, there are these great real life metaphors as far as parent expectations, the world's expectations of you, and then of course kind of battling those expectations when you're placed as something like a sidekick in this movie and kind of showing yourself to be the hero. And beyond that, this is just a very cheesy, over-the-top superhero movie that Disney came out with. And yeah, you know, going back and rewatching it, it was a fun time. I had a good time rewatching it. There was a lot of moments that were really funny or just kind of very charming. The movie does have a very, you know, lighthearted, fun charm to it. Some of the CG, of course, is very dated. This movie did come out in 2005. So this is mid-2000s Disney CGI of the early era of comic book movies in the way that they are now. So there's definitely this cheese to it. There's a lot of really cartoony moments. And then there's even moments that just don't make sense, where like at the beginning of the movie, like I mentioned, they're placed in either the hero category and the sidekick category. And when they call up Will Stronghold and they, you know, tell him to show his powers, and he's like, I don't have any powers, they don't believe him. The coach does not believe him, and he ends up just calling for a car to drop on top of him, expecting that he'll catch it. And Will just kind of like drops to the ground, like almost unrealistically fast, just kind of like lies down as his car plummets on top of him. And I just love the idea that if he didn't lie down, they literally would have killed this kid instantly. So there's really cheesy, over-the-top moments like that in this very silly movie. This is a silly movie, but there's a lot of heart and charm at the center of the story. It's a movie that's about kind of overcoming people's expectations of you, even your parents or even your own, while also kind of being able to overcome situations that you're maybe underestimated in. And I think that there's a lot of really great real-life messages to take from this movie. It's a silly premise that has some fun action and a very over-the-top third act, but I think if you're a fan of comic book movies or a fan of superheroes, and you can kind of have fun kind of poking holes in some superhero tropes and kind of this very silly premise of this world of superheroes where kids have to go to school because their parents were superheroes, I found it to be a good time. Like I mentioned, it has a lot of real-life messages, and I think it's a movie that I highly recommend that you guys check out. It is currently on Hulu and Disney Plus if you guys want to check it out. A great cast. There's a lot of big names in this movie that would go on to become bigger names in other movies. Ronnie talked a little bit about that. And yeah, it's got a solid cast. It's got some great performances and some really silly, over-the-top elements that just kind of make for a fun ride for kids, for families of all ages. And I do highly recommend it. So I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this video. Comment your thoughts down below. Have you seen this movie? Have you not seen this movie? Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon next to the subscribe so you guys can get notifications for my future videos. And as usual, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.